the judge's gavel hit the bench with a sound that felt like it shattered my entire world. Miss Rodriguez, you signed away your rights to EventPro when you transferred the LLC to your husband's sole ownership. The company, the intellectual property, and all associated assets belong to Mr. Park. Case dismissed. I stood there in that fluorescent-lit courtroom, my hands trembling so badly I had to grip the table to stay upright. David didn't even look at me as he walked past, his lawyer's briefcase swinging carelessly, nearly hitting my arm. Behind him, Bianca Sterling click-clacked in her Louboutins, her platinum blonde hair cascading over her shoulders like she was walking a runway instead of leaving a courthouse where she'd just watched my life end. She stopped right in front of me, her Instagram-perfect face tilted in mock sympathy. Then she leaned in close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume and whispered, "Thanks for building the business, Elena. We'll take good care of it." She winked, actually winked, before linking her arm through David's and sashaying toward the exit. I watched them disappear through the heavy oak doors, and something inside me just collapsed. My lawyer, a exhausted-looking public defender who'd taken my case pro bono because I couldn't afford anyone else, patted my shoulder awkwardly. "I'm sorry, Miss Rodriguez, but that prenup you signed 3 years ago, it was ironclad, and the company transfer papers you signed last year, those sealed it." "I thought I was signing tax documents," I whispered. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. "He said it was just paperwork for our accountant." "I believe you," she said quietly. "But it doesn't matter what you thought. It matters what you signed." She packed up her files, and I could see the pity in her eyes. She'd seen cases like mine before. Women who trusted the wrong men. Women who were too naive, too in love, too stupid to read the fine print. "Good luck, Elena. I hope things work out for you." Things did not work out for me. 3 hours later, I was sitting in a Starbucks bathroom stall, staring at my phone screen through tears that wouldn't stop falling. Bank account, overdrawn by $2,347. Credit cards, maxed out from legal fees. Apartment, in David's name, locks already changed when I tried to go home. Car, repossessed 2 weeks ago when I couldn't make the payment after David cut me off from our joint account. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, or who I'd thought was my best friend. "Sorry, Elena, but David's been really good to us with the referrals for the catering business. We can't risk losing that relationship by staying in touch with you. I hope you understand. Good luck." One by one, they'd all chosen sides. And they'd all chosen him. David Park, the successful tech CEO with 47,000 Instagram followers and a gorgeous influencer girlfriend. Who was going to believe me? The bitter ex-wife with mascara streaking down her face and holes in her discount store shoes. I walked out of that Starbucks at sunset, with nowhere to go and $3.42 in loose change in my coat pocket. The summer heat pressed down on me like a weight, the kind of sticky Los Angeles evening where the smog turns the sky orange and makes you feel like you're breathing soup. My feet were bleeding through my court heels, cheap ones I'd bought at Payless because I couldn't afford the designer shoes I used to wear when I was planning events for celebrities. I walked for hours, downtown to Chinatown, past the restaurants where I used to take clients, past the galleries where I'd organized opening night parties. Every corner held a memory of what I used to be. Elena Rodriguez, the event planner everyone wanted to hire. The woman who could turn any space into magic. The woman who'd built EventPro from nothing, working 80-hour weeks, networking until her voice went hoarse, creating experiences that made people cry with joy. And I'd handed it all to David on a silver platter because I loved him, because he said we were partners. Because I was too busy actually working to notice him slowly, methodically transferring everything into his name. By midnight, I ended up on a bus bench in the heart of Chinatown, across from the old Metro Plaza shopping center. My feet had given out. I couldn't walk anymore. I just sat there, under the flickering streetlight, watching the traffic thin out as the city went to sleep. That's when I heard the sound of aluminum cans rattling in a shopping cart. An elderly Asian woman was making her way down the sidewalk, pushing a grocery cart filled with recyclables. She couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall, bent over from age or hardship or both, wearing layers of clothes despite the summer heat. A torn windbreaker over a stained sweater over what looked like 2 or 3 shirts. Her gray hair stuck out from under a dirty baseball cap. She was about 20 feet away when 3 young guys in basketball jerseys stepped out from an alley. I could smell the alcohol from where I sat. "Hey, old lady," one of them called out, his words slurred. "What you got in that cart? Any money in there?" The woman didn't respond, just tried to push her cart faster. But one of the guys grabbed it, yanking it away from her. Cans spilled onto the sidewalk, rolling in every direction. "I asked you a question," he said, getting in her face. "You deaf or just stupid?" Something in me snapped. Maybe it was because I'd spent the whole day being powerless, watching everything be taken from me while I stood there helpless. Maybe it was because I had nothing left to lose. Or maybe I was just so tired of watching people get hurt by those who were stronger, meaner, more willing to take what didn't belong to them. I stood up. My legs were shaking, my heart hammering, but I walked toward them anyway. "Leave her alone," I said. My voice came out stronger than I felt. The 3 guys turned to look at me, and I saw the moment they decided I wasn't a threat. One of them laughed. "What are you going to do about it, lady? You look like you're about to pass out." He wasn't wrong, but I kept walking until I was standing between them and the elderly woman. "I'm going to call the police," I said, pulling out my phone. It was a bluff. I had no service. I hadn't paid my bill in 2 months, but they didn't know that. "Crazy bitch," one of them muttered. They looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them, and then they backed off. Whatever. Probably no money anyway. They wandered back toward the alley, their laughter echoing off the buildings. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding and turned to the woman. She was gathering her cans, moving slowly, painfully. Without thinking, I knelt down and started helping her, picking up the aluminum cans and placing them back in her cart. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Did they hurt you?" She looked at me with dark, sharp eyes that seemed oddly clear for someone who appeared so frail. "No hurt," she said, her accent thick. "Thank you." We worked in silence, gathering the cans. When we were done, I stood up and pulled out the $3.42 from my pocket. It was everything I had. "Here," I said, holding it out to her. "Take it. I know it's not much, but—" She stared at the money, then at my face, then back at the money. Her expression was unreadable. "Please," I said. And then, because the day had broken something in me and I couldn't hold it in anymore, I added, "I don't need it. I don't have anywhere to spend it anyway. I don't have anywhere to go. So please, just take it. Buy yourself something to eat." The woman's hand reached out slowly, but instead of taking the money, she closed my fingers around it. "You keep," she said firmly. Then she did something that surprised me. She started unbuttoning the ratty windbreaker she wore. "No, wait," I said. "You need that." But she'd already taken it off and was holding it out to me. Underneath, she wore a surprisingly clean white sweater. "Night cold later," she said. "You need—" "I can't take your jacket," I protested. But she pressed it into my hands with surprising strength. "You help me. I help you." She looked me directly in the eyes, and for a moment, I could have sworn I saw something in that gaze, something calculating and intelligent that didn't match the bent, frail appearance. "Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, you come back here. Same place." "Why?" I asked, confused. "I show you something." She gripped my wrist with thin fingers that felt surprisingly firm. "You come, promise." I don't know why I agreed. Maybe because it was the first kindness anyone had shown me all day. Maybe because I had nowhere else to be. "Okay, I promise." She nodded once, sharp and definitive, then turned and pushed her cart down the sidewalk, disappearing into the darkness between streetlights. I stood there holding her windbreaker, which smelled like mothballs in the street, and for the first time all day, I felt something other than despair. I felt confused, which was at least a different emotion. I sat back down on the bench, pulled the jacket around me despite the heat, and somehow, exhausted beyond measure, I fell asleep. A car horn woke me at dawn. The sky was that pale gray pink of early morning in Los Angeles, smog already building. My neck ached from sleeping sitting up, my back screamed in protest, and my mouth tasted like I'd been chewing on pennies. But I was still there, on that bench in Chinatown, wearing a homeless woman's windbreaker. I checked my dead phone out of habit. 5:47 a.m., almost 6 o'clock. Part of me wanted to leave, What was I doing, waiting for a random elderly woman who probably couldn't help me with anything? I should be looking for a job, any job, making calls on my dead phone, finding a shelter. Something practical. But I'd promised. And in a life where I'd lost everything because I'd trusted the wrong person's promises, maybe keeping my own meant something? At exactly 6 a.m., a black Mercedes S-Class pulled up to the curb in front of me. The rear window rolled down, and the elderly woman from last night looked out at me. Except she didn't look elderly anymore. She was wearing a tailored cream Chanel suit, her gray hair styled in an elegant updo, pearl earrings catching the early morning light. The bent, shuffling woman was gone. In her place sat someone who looked like she belonged in a boardroom or at a country club. "Get in, Elena," she said in perfect, unaccented English. I stood there with my mouth open, unable to process what I was seeing. "How do you know my name?" She smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut glass. "I know a lot of things. Now get in. We have much to discuss." The driver, an older man in a black suit, came around and opened the door for me. In a daze, I climbed into the back seat. The interior smelled like leather and expensive perfume. There was a stark contrast between this pristine luxury and the sticky bus bench I'd just been sleeping on. As the car pulled away from the curb, the woman pulled out a leather portfolio and opened it. Inside were photographs. Of me, of David, of the Event Pro office, of Bianca, of the courthouse. Some of these photos were from yesterday. Others were from weeks, months ago. "What is this?" I whispered. "Due diligence," she said calmly. "I've been watching the plaza across from your ex-husband's office for 3 months. Metro Plaza, the shopping center where Event Pro rents its office space. I own that building, Miss Rodriguez, and I've been looking for someone to help me with a problem." "Who are you?" "My name is Margaret Chen. 20 years ago, I owned a fashion empire worth $200 million. I built it from nothing after coming to this country with $5 in my pocket and a sewing machine. Then I retired and started investing in real estate." She gestured out the window as we pulled up to the Metro Plaza. In the morning light, I could see it was a beautiful Art Deco building from the 1942, but neglected. Half the storefronts were empty. The fountain in the courtyard was dry, and there was graffiti on the walls. "It's falling apart," I said. "Yes. Because the anchor tenant hasn't paid rent in 4 months and has scared away all the other businesses?" She looked at me meaningfully. "The anchor tenant is Event Pro, Miss Rodriguez. Your ex-husband's company. The company you built." My head was spinning. "I don't understand. Why are you telling me this?" "Because last night, you gave a stranger your last $3. You put yourself at risk to protect someone you thought was weak. You showed kindness when you had every reason to be cruel to the world." She closed the portfolio. "I have been looking for someone with those qualities. Someone who understands what it means to build something from nothing. Someone who knows the event planning business inside and out. Someone who has a very personal reason to want to see David Park fail." "What are you asking me to do?" "Manage this plaza. Bring it back to life. In 60 days, the bank is going to foreclose unless I can show substantial improvement in occupancy and revenue. If I lose this building, I lose my entire real estate portfolio. It's all cross-collateralized. I'm 72 years old, Miss Rodriguez. I'm tired. I need someone young, hungry, and smart to save my legacy." She paused. "And in return, I will help you destroy the man who destroyed you." I looked out at the plaza. Then at Margaret Chen, this woman who'd been pretending to be homeless to test people's character, apparently. Then at my reflection in the car window, still wearing yesterday's wrinkled court clothes, still looking like the broken woman I was. "Why would you help me with revenge?" I asked quietly. "Because David Park owes me $87,000 in back rent, because he's been lying to the other tenants, telling them I'm going to sell and they should leave. Because he's been forging documents to make it look like his business is thriving when it's bleeding money. And because—" She leaned forward. "I believe in karma, Miss Rodriguez. But sometimes karma needs a little help." She held out her hand. "Do we have a deal?" I thought about sleeping on that bench. I thought about Bianca's wink in the courthouse. I thought about David's face as he walked past me without a single word after I'd given him 6 years of my life and every ounce of my talent. I shook her hand. "We have a deal." Margaret Chen smiled, and it was the smile of a predator who'd just found the perfect hunting partner. "Excellent. Your first task is to go through every document related to EventPro's tenancy. The office is on the 3rd floor, Suite 312. I have a key." She pulled out an envelope. "Inside, you'll also find $5,000 cash, keys to the studio apartment above the plaza that comes with your manager position, and access codes to all the building systems. Get cleaned up, get some rest, and then get to work. We have 60 days to save this building and ruin your ex-husband." "He'll recognize me," I said. "If I'm managing the building, he'll see me." "Oh, I'm counting on it." Margaret's smile got sharper. "I want him to know exactly who's about to destroy everything he's built. After all, you're just the new building manager doing your job. If he happens to have some problems along the way, well, that's just business." The driver handed me the envelope. I opened it and saw the cash, crisp $100 bills, more money than I'd seen in months. It felt surreal, like I'd stumbled into some kind of fairy tale or revenge thriller. "Why me?" I asked again. "Really? There must be hundreds of property managers in LA you could have hired." Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "3 months ago, my granddaughter married a man who seemed perfect, charming, successful, adored by everyone. 2 weeks ago, she called me crying. He'd taken everything, cleaned out their accounts, transferred their condo into his name, left her with nothing. The lawyers say there's nothing we can do. The prenup he had her sign was ironclad." She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw real emotion in those sharp eyes. I couldn't help her, but maybe I can help you, and maybe watching you win will give her hope that she can win too. I felt something unlock in my chest, some tight knot of shame and isolation. I wasn't alone. This wasn't just happening to me. "I'll do it," I said. "I'll save your building, and I'll make sure David Park regrets every lie he ever told." "I know you will." Margaret handed me a business card. "My private number. Call me day or night. And Elena? Welcome to Metro Plaza. Let's get to work." The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity that felt like being resurrected from the dead. The studio apartment above the plaza was small but clean, with actual furniture and a working kitchen. I took the longest shower of my life, scrubbing away the courthouse and the street and the feeling of being disposable. Then I put on fresh clothes from the bag of professional wear Margaret had somehow known to leave for me, and I went to work. The first thing I did was go through every file related to EventPro. What I found made my blood boil. David had been lying to me about the business for over a year. While I was working 16-hour days, planning events, calling clients, managing vendors, he'd been systematically moving money out of the company. The invoices told the story. Payments to consultants who didn't exist, business expenses for luxury hotels and first-class flights that coincided with weekends he'd told me he was at conferences. A $43,000 payment to Bianca Sterling's LLC for social media consulting 3 months before he filed for divorce. He'd been planning this. All of it. The divorce, the company transfer, leaving me with nothing. It was all premeditated, calculated, cold, and according to Margaret's files, he was desperate. The company was hemorrhaging cash. Clients were leaving because without me, the events were mediocre. EventPro had 3 major events coming up in the next month, including a product launch for a tech startup that had paid a $200,000 deposit. If those events failed, David would be ruined. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Then I got to work on the building. I called every vendor I'd ever worked with, every person who'd told me I was talented, everyone who'd been in the business longer than David had. "This is Elena Rodriguez," I'd say. "You might have heard I'm no longer with EventPro, but I'm managing Metro Plaza now, and I'm offering fantastic rates for event spaces, retail, offices. Are you interested?" The response was overwhelming. People I thought had abandoned me called back. "Elena! God, we were so sorry about what happened. That guy is such a snake. Of course we want to work with you again." One by one, spaces in the plaza started to fill. A catering company took the ground floor corner unit. A florist opened in the courtyard space. A photographer rented a studio. And I made sure every single one of them knew that the building manager was someone who understood events, who could coordinate between vendors, who could help make their businesses thrive. Within 3 weeks, Metro Plaza went from half empty to 75% occupied, and David noticed. I was in the courtyard directing the installation of new fountain equipment when I heard his voice behind me. "Elena?" I turned slowly. He stood there in his expensive suit, his perfectly styled hair, his Ted Baker shoes that I knew cost $400 because I'd been with him when he bought them with money from our company account. His face showed shock, confusion, and something that might have been fear. "David," I said pleasantly, like we were old acquaintances running into each other at a coffee shop. "How are you? What are you doing here?" His eyes darted around the courtyard, taking in all the activity, all the new tenants moving in. "I work here. I'm the building manager." I turned back to the fountain technician. "Make sure the pressure is set correctly. Mrs. Chen wants it operational by next week." "Mrs. Chen?" David's voice went up an octave. "You work for Mrs. Chen?" "I do." "Is there something I can help you with?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Elena, listen. I know things ended badly between us, but you can't be here. It's a conflict of interest." "A conflict with what?" I asked innocently. "I'm just doing my job, managing the property, making sure all tenants are following their lease agreements. Speaking of which, I've been meaning to talk to you about EventPro's account. You're 4 months behind on rent. That's $87,000. His face went pale. "That's a mistake. We paid." "Do you have receipts? Canceled checks? Bank transfers?" I pulled out my tablet, showing him the account history. "Because I have all the records here, and they show no payments since March. The previous management must have lost them." "There was no previous management. Mrs. Chen managed it herself, and she's very thorough with her record keeping." I smiled at him, and I could see him realize that I wasn't broken anymore, that something had changed. "I'll need payment within 7 days, or I'll have to begin eviction proceedings. It's all in your lease, Section 12, Paragraph 4. I'm sure you remember signing it." "You can't do this," he hissed. "I'll fight this." "Please do." "I'd love to see you explain to a judge why you haven't paid rent in 4 months while posting Instagram photos from the Maldives and buying your girlfriend a Range Rover." I'd done my research. Bianca's Instagram was a goldmine of evidence. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do." I walked away, leaving him standing there in the courtyard. My hands were shaking, but I didn't let him see. As soon as I got back to my office, I closed the door and sat down, my heart racing. My phone rang. "Margaret Chen." "I hear you ran into Mr. Park," she said. There was amusement in her voice. "How did you never mind?" "Yes, I gave him the rent notice." "Good. Now we wait. Desperate men make stupid choices. Let's see what he does next." What he did next was send his mother. Patricia Park showed up 3 days later, dressed in Burberry and Prada, her highlighted hair perfectly blown out. She'd never liked me when I was married to David. Thought I wasn't good enough for her son, too focused on work, not domestic enough. Now she stood in my office with a completely different attitude. "Elena, darling," she said, air kissing near my cheeks. "You look wonderful. Have you lost weight?" "Hello, Patricia. What can I do for you?" She settled into the chair across from my desk like she was doing me a favor by being there. "I wanted to talk to you about this little misunderstanding with the rent. David is just so busy with the business. You know how it is. Things slip through the cracks. I'm sure we can work something out?" "The lease is quite clear," I said. "Payment is due on the 1st of each month." "Yes, but surely for family." "We're not family anymore, Patricia." Her smile tightened. "Of course. But Elena, be reasonable. David's business is going through a transition period. If you push this eviction, it could ruin him. And then where would that leave you? Don't you still care about him at all?" I looked at her, this woman who'd watched her son systematically destroy me and hadn't said a word. "Did you care about me when David took everything? When he had me sign away my own company? When he left me homeless?" She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "That was between you and David. I couldn't interfere. But you can interfere now? When he needs something?" I stood up. "Here's what's going to happen, Patricia. David will pay the rent he owes, plus late fees, within 4 days. Or I will begin eviction proceedings." There's no family discount. There's no working it out. There's just the lease he signed. Patricia stood as well, and the pleasant facade cracked. You're making a mistake. David has lawyers. He has connections. You're nobody, Elena. Just a building manager. You can't win against him. We'll see. I walked to the door and opened it. Please leave. I have actual work to do. She swept out, and I heard her heels clicking angrily down the hallway. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You're going to regret this. I'll destroy you. Again. D. I screenshot it and sent it to Margaret. Her response came immediately. Perfect. Keep everything. We'll need it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about David's threat, about Patricia's warning. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was in over my head. David did have lawyers, connections, money. What did I have? A job managing a struggling building for a woman I'd known for 3 weeks. I got up and walked down to the courtyard. The new fountain was running now, water trickling musically in the darkness. The plaza looked beautiful at night, the old Art Deco details highlighted by the new lighting I'd installed. That's when I noticed someone sitting on the fountain's edge. Margaret Chen, wearing a simple silk robe, her hair down. Can't sleep either? She asked. I sat down next to her. I'm scared, I admitted. David texted me tonight. He said he'd destroy me again. Good. Good? It means you're getting to him. She looked at the building around us. You know what I learned in 40 years of business, Elena? Men like David Park are bullies. They're strong when you're weak. But the moment you stand up, the moment you show you're not afraid, they fall apart. Because their power was always an illusion. It only worked when you believed in it. What if I fail? I asked quietly. What if I can't save this building? What if David wins again? Margaret turned to look at me. Then you fail. But you'll fail fighting, not cowering. And that's worth something. She paused. Do you know why I spent 3 months pretending to be homeless? Testing people? I was looking for someone who still had humanity left after being broken, because that's the kind of person who doesn't just survive. They thrive, they build, they create something better than what came before. You see that in me? I wouldn't have hired you if I didn't. She stood up. Get some sleep, Elena. Tomorrow we have work to do. David's big product launch event is in 3 weeks, the one with the $200,000 deposit. I have a feeling it's not going to go as planned. As I walked back to my apartment, I felt something settle in my chest. Determination, purpose. I'd spent so long being David's victim. Maybe it was time to be something else. The next morning, I made a phone call I should have made weeks ago, to Rachel Kim, an event planner I'd mentored when she was first starting out. When she answered, she sounded surprised. Elena? Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you. I heard what happened with David and I'm so sorry. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how to. Rachel, I interrupted gently, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Has David contacted you about working on any events? Silence. Then, yes, the tech-forward product launch in 3 weeks. He offered me twice my usual rate to step in and manage it because his regular coordinator was on maternity leave. She paused. Elena, I had no idea he was talking about you. If I'd known what he did to you. It's okay. Can you tell me about the event? What's the plan? She shouldn't have told me. It was confidential client information. But Rachel had always been grateful for the mentorship I'd given her, and I could hear the guilt in her voice. She told me everything. The venue, the guest list, the product they were launching, the celebrities they'd invited, the tech journalists who would be there. It was a massive event. The kind that could make or break a startup Series B funding round. Rachel, I said when she was done, I need you to do something for me, and then I need you to quit. Quit the event, quit working with David, tell him you have a family emergency, apologize profusely, recommend someone else, someone you know will do a mediocre job. I gave her a name, a coordinator who was nice but disorganized, the kind who always forgot critical details. Can you do that? Will it help you? It will destroy him. Consider it done. I could hear the smile in her voice. And Elena, I'm glad you're back. The industry needs you. After I hung up, I pulled up Instagram and navigated to Bianca Sterling's profile. 156,000 followers. Photos of her at exclusive clubs, on yachts, in designer clothes. Every post had thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. She was the perfect influencer girlfriend for David's image. Beautiful, aspirational, connected. I looked closer at the comments. "Love this outfit, you're so gorgeous. Living the dream." Generic, repetitive, enthusiastic. Too enthusiastic. I checked the accounts, leaving comments. Most had been created in the last 6 months. Most had few followers themselves. Most had the generic look of bot accounts. I downloaded a social media analytics tool and ran Bianca's account through it. The results made me laugh out loud. 95% fake followers. Engagement rate of 0.03%. An estimated $47,000 spent on follower purchases in the last year. Bianca Sterling wasn't an influencer. She was a carefully constructed fraud. I called Margaret. "I found something. Come up. I want to see." Her apartment took up the entire top floor of the plaza, a stunning space filled with art and antiques. We sat in her living room while I showed her the analytics. "She's been scamming brands," I explained, "charging them thousands for sponsored posts that reach almost no real people. And David's been using her fake follower count to attract investors, making it look like Eventpro has insider connections with major influencers." Margaret smiled slowly. "Can you prove it?" "I can document everything. Screenshots, analytics, receipts for the follower purchases, if I can hack into her accounts." "No hacking. We stay legal." Margaret thought for a moment. "But we can make sure this information finds its way to the right people. I know several journalists who would be very interested in a story about influencer fraud in the tech industry. And if the story breaks right before David's big product launch event, it would be a shame if his high-profile girlfriend's fraud scandal overshadowed his client's big day, wouldn't it?" Margaret's eyes gleamed. "Start documenting. I'll make some calls." The next 2 weeks were the most intense work period of my life, and I'd planned 100-person weddings in 3 days before. During the day, I managed the plaza, handled tenant issues, coordinated with contractors. At night, I became a detective, building a comprehensive dossier on everything David and Bianca had done. I found the shell LLC Bianca had created to funnel money from David's business. I found the fake invoices for social media consulting that was really just payments to her for playing the girlfriend role. I found messages on his business Instagram where he'd told potential investors about his relationship with major influencer Bianca Sterling, who has over 150K authentic followers. I found hotel receipts showing David and Bianca had been together for 8 months before he filed for divorce. 8 months of lying to my face while planning his exit strategy. And then I found something that made everything else look like small potatoes. I was going through Eventpro's bank statements, the ones Margaret had subpoenaed as part of the eviction proceedings, when I noticed something odd. Regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize. When I looked closer, I realized the account belonged to Marcus Sterling. Bianca's last name was Sterling. It couldn't be a coincidence. I ran a background check. Marcus Sterling, 42, CEO of Tech Venture Capital, one of the largest venture capital firms in Los Angeles. Known for aggressive acquisition strategies and hostile takeovers, I pulled up Tech Venture's portfolio. 3 of Eventpro's biggest clients from the last year had been Tech Venture-funded startups. Clients that had specifically requested Eventpro despite having no prior relationship with the company. My hands started shaking as I realized what I was looking at. Bianca Sterling wasn't just David's girlfriend. She was Marcus Sterling's sister, and David hadn't just been scammed by a pretty face. He'd been systematically infiltrated and manipulated by a venture capitalist who wanted access to his client list, his business model, and his trade secrets. Every romantic getaway had been a strategy session. Every piece of advice Bianca had given David was designed to make him rack up debt, make poor decisions, drive away his original clients. And when Eventpro finally collapsed under the weight of its own dysfunction, Marcus Sterling would swoop in, buy the assets for pennies, and absorb the client list into his own portfolio of event planning companies. David thought he was the predator. He was actually the prey. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. It was too perfect, too poetic. The man who'd scammed me was being scammed by someone even more ruthless. But it also gave me an idea. I called Margaret. I know how we destroy him, but we need to move fast. The product launch is in 5 days. Tell me everything, she said. On the day of Tech Forward's product launch, I woke up at 4 a.m. I showered, did my makeup carefully, and put on the Armani suit Margaret had insisted on buying me. You need to look like you've already won, she'd said. It's psychological warfare. The launch was being held at the convention center downtown, a massive venue with a 500-person capacity. David had sold it to the client as an exclusive, high-end experience with celebrity hosts, tech journalist coverage, and influencer amplification through Bianca's network. What he didn't know was that last night at 11 p.m., a story had gone live on TechCrunch. Influencer fraud ring exposed. How fake followers are scamming tech industry. The article featured Bianca Sterling prominently, with screenshots of her fake engagement, documentation of her follower purchases, and quotes from brands she'd scammed. By 6 a.m., it had been picked up by every major tech news outlet. By 8 a.m., Bianca's Instagram account was gone. Deleted. Her Twitter, gone. Her LinkedIn, gone. She'd vanished from the internet entirely. I arrived at the convention center at 10 a.m., 2 hours before the event was scheduled to start. The scene was chaos. Vendors were confused about setup. The AV team didn't have the right equipment. The catering coordinator was arguing with someone about the menu, and in the middle of it all stood David, phone pressed to his ear, face red, veins bulging in his neck. He saw me, and his eyes widened. "What are you doing here?" "I'm a guest," I said pleasantly, holding up the invitation I'd received from one of the Tech Forward board members who was an old client of mine. "Looking forward to the event." "Get out." "I don't think I will. This is a public event, David. You sold tickets." His phone rang again. He glanced at it, and I saw his face go even paler. He turned away to answer it, but I heard him say, "Yes, Mr. Chen, I understand you're upset about the article, but I assure you Bianca had nothing to do with Event Pros. No, please don't, Mr. Chen. Hello?" He lowered his phone slowly and just stared at it. The Tech Forward CEO had just fired him as the event coordinator, less than 2 hours before start time. I walked away, finding my seat in the audience. Margaret was already there, elegant, in a navy suit. "Phase 1 complete," she murmured. "Phase 2 begins in 15 minutes, I replied. At 11:45, the Tech Forward CEO took the stage. He was a nervous, sweating man who looked like he might throw up. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've had some unexpected complications with our event coordination team, but we're going to proceed with the product launch. Please bear with us." The lights dimmed for the product demo video. It didn't play. The AV system crashed. Someone rushed on stage to fix it. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. The audience was getting restless. Tech journalists were checking their phones, clearly losing interest. Finally, someone got the video working. It played for about 30 seconds before the audio cut out. Then, the video froze. I knew why. Because Rachel had told me that David had cut corners on the AV contractor to save money, using a cheap company instead of the professional vendor I would have booked, and cheap equipment fails. The event was falling apart in real time. At 12:30, during what was supposed to be the celebrity host segment, someone did show up. Marcus Sterling walked into the convention center with a woman I recognized from research as his legal team. He walked right up to where David was standing in the wings, desperately trying to salvage something from the disaster. I moved closer so I could hear. "Mr. Park," Marcus said smoothly, "we need to talk about Event Pro." "Not now," David hissed. "I'm in the middle of something." "Actually, you're in the middle of a breach of contract lawsuit. My client, Tech Forward, hired you to provide a professional event experience. This," he gestured at the chaos on stage, "is not that. They want their $200,000 deposit back, plus damages for reputational harm. You can't do this. I'll fix it. You'll fix it with what money? I have your bank statements, David. You're $300,000 in debt. Your girlfriend, my sister, has been documenting everything for me. Every lie you told investors. Every corner you cut. Every client you disappointed." Marcus smiled, and it was the smile of a shark. "Event Pro is done. And I'll be buying your client list and assets when you file for bankruptcy. Which should be, oh, next week? David's face went from red to white. Bianca, she was working for you? This whole time? Did you really think a woman like her would date a washed-up event planner for love? She was a business strategy, David, just like you were for Elena Rodriguez. Marcus glanced past David and saw me standing there. He nodded slightly, an acknowledgement of one player to another. You should have kept her, by the way. She actually had talent. He walked away, leaving David standing there, his entire world collapsing around him. The noise from the failed product launch echoed through the convention center. Journalists were already posting scathing reviews on Twitter. The tech-forward CEO was apologizing profusely to everyone in the audience. And David Park, the man who'd taken everything from me, slowly sank down to sit on the floor, his head in his hands. I walked up to him. He looked up at me with eyes that were completely broken. You did this, he whispered. You set this all up. I didn't set up anything, I said honestly. I just stopped protecting you. This is what your life looks like when I'm not there to catch you, David. This is who you really are, without me making you look good. Bianca, she used me. Yes, she did. Just like you used me. I crouched down so I was at his eye level. The difference is, when someone used me, I got up and fought back. What are you going to do? He didn't answer. He just sat there on the floor of the convention center, surrounded by the wreckage of his career, while people walked past him like he wasn't even there. I stood up, smoothed my suit, and walked back to where Margaret was waiting. Ready to go? She asked. One more thing. I walked up to the stage. The tech-forward CEO saw me and his face lit up with recognition. Elena Rodriguez? Oh my God, is that you? I'd planned his daughter's wedding 2 years ago. He'd told me it was the most beautiful event he'd ever seen. Hi, Mr. Chen. I heard you're having some difficulties. I manage Metro Plaza now, and we have a beautiful event space that would be perfect for a product launch. If you're interested, I could have it set up in 3 hours. He grabbed my hand like I was a life preserver. Can you really save this? It's what I do. 3 hours later, the product launch happened at Metro Plaza. Not in the convention center, but in our newly renovated courtyard, under string lights and flowering trees, with professional AV equipment I'd called in favors to get, catering from the best vendor in LA, and an intimate atmosphere that made everyone feel special instead of like cattle in a massive auditorium. It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was everything EventPro used to be when I was running it. The tech-forward CEO gave me a hug afterward. You saved us. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I mean it. If you ever need a recommendation, a connection, anything, I owe you. More importantly, 20 tech journalists had just seen me pull off a miracle. By the next morning, 3 of them had written articles. Not about the failed launch, but about the successful recovery. Event planner Elena Rodriguez saves product launch after epic failure. Read one headline. Another. From EventPro's ashes, Rodriguez rises again. My phone started ringing. Clients I'd worked with years ago. New clients who'd heard about what I'd done. People asking if I was available for their events. Within a week, I had more business than I could handle alone. Within 2 weeks, EventPro filed for bankruptcy. The assets were sold to Marcus Sterling's company for $50,000, about 10% of what David owed in debts. Within 3 weeks, I'd hired 4 coordinators, rented office space in Metro Plaza, and officially launched Rodriguez Events. And David Park? He tried to get a job at 3 different event companies in LA. All of them turned him down, because the industry talks, and everyone knew what he'd done to me. He tried to move to San Francisco. Same result. Last I heard, he was working at a call center in Phoenix, trying to sell timeshares. But that's not the end of the story. 6 months after the product launch, Margaret threw a party at Metro Plaza. She'd decided to officially retire and transfer ownership of the building to me. Not manage it. Own it. I can't accept this, I said, staring at the property deed with my name on it. It's worth millions. Yes, and you've earned it. You saved it when it was worthless. You turned it into something beautiful. Besides, she smiled, I told you I was looking for someone to be my legacy. You're it." The party was filled with all the people who'd supported me. Rachel, who now worked as my senior coordinator, the vendors who'd given me second chances, the clients who'd stuck with me, my new team, and Margaret, who'd become more than a mentor. She'd become family. I gave a speech, thanking everyone, telling them about the journey from that courthouse to this moment, about sleeping on a bench and thinking my life was over, about meeting a woman who'd shown me that kindness is never wasted. "I learned something this year," I said to the crowd. "When you lose everything, you find out what you're really made of, and if you're lucky, you find people who help you rebuild. Not because they want something from you, but because they believe in who you are." I raised my glass. To second chances. To the people who see you when you're invisible. And to knowing your worth, even when the world tells you you have nothing. Everyone cheered and drank, and I saw Margaret in the crowd, smiling at me with pride. Later, after most guests had left, I found her sitting by the fountain, the same spot where we'd talked months ago when I was scared and overwhelmed. "Thank you," I said, sitting beside her. "For everything. For seeing me when I couldn't see myself." "You're welcome. But Elena, I need you to understand something. I didn't save you. You saved yourself. I just gave you an opportunity. What you did with it, that was all you." She patted my hand. "That's the difference between you and David. He needed someone to build things for him. You just needed a chance to build for yourself." "What about your granddaughter?" I asked. "The one whose husband took everything?" Margaret smiled. "She came to see me last week. She'd just been hired as a lawyer at a firm specializing in predatory prenups and financial abuse cases. She's going to help women like herself, like you." She said watching your story gave her the courage to fight back. I felt tears prick my eyes. "Tell her I'd like to meet her." "I will. I think you two would get along very well." As I walked home that night, through the courtyard I now owned, past the businesses that were thriving, past the fountain that was lit up and beautiful, I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago, broken, homeless, believing I had nothing left. And I thought about who I was now. Strong, successful, surrounded by people who cared about me, not because of what I could do for them, but because of who I was. Revenge had been sweet. Watching David lose everything he'd stolen felt like justice. But this, building something new, creating a space where other people could thrive, helping others the way Margaret had helped me, this felt like something better than revenge. This felt like winning. Welcome to Martha's Stories. I share real-life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and like my video. Now I'm curious, have you ever had someone betray you like this? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more stories about people who fought back and won, make sure you turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. And remember, kindness is never wasted. Even when you're at your lowest, especially then, it might just change everything.